We've mentioned his name a few times already in this episode, Sam Darnold.
Mhm.
He's got some buyers. He's got a market, a lot of movement going on. We mentioned the Steelers would be potentially in the market to go get Aaron Rodgers. Well, Sam Darnold also available. Where do you think he's going to end up?
I know we talked about it last show, and you weren't a big fan of the move, but I think he could. I could see him back in the Big Apple. I could see him back as a Giant. They're the second highest betted odds for him to. I think they said like some. I'm not even gonna try and list the odds right now because I don't have them on me, but they are the second favorite to land Sam Darnold at this point. They jumped Minnesota as soon as they didn't franchise tag him. I think that it could be a good fit. You have an offensive like I was saying last time. Sam Darnold to the Giants makes sense because you have an offensive mind in Brian Daboll. You have a good running back that you just drafted. You have a number one receiver now. If you go out and get somebody, you get some offensive line help, and you get maybe a wide receiver too in the draft or during the offseason, I think it could genuinely work. And obviously, maybe he'll go back to seeing ghosts. But that Jets franchise has just been dysfunctional for the longest time. You put Hall of Fame quarterbacks in there, and it still doesn't work. So something could just be wrong with the Jets in general. I think that the Giants are a lot better. Obviously, they made the playoffs with Daniel Jones before he turned back into a pumpkin. So I think it could work, and they're obviously Vegas doesn't hate it either because they're the second current betting favorite. So I could see it happening, and the team around him it doesn't look that bad. Like they were winning, they were being competitive in games with Tommy DeVito. Like if you get a Sam, if you think that Sam Darnold is better than some of those guys, I don't. And then you also still have the number 3 pick in the draft. So if you get Sam Darnold and then you can move off of quarterback, you have a lot you can do with that. You can move down and maybe get even more for the future. I think that the Giants situation isn't the worst in the world. And you have guys on that defense too, like Kayvon Thibodeau. Like you have guys on that team where it's not the worst team in the world. And the Giants don't suck. They just didn't have a quarterback last year, in my opinion.
So a couple things there. I don't hate it. I just don't think it fits right for his career. I think, as you mentioned, the Jets, a graveyard, total quarterback graveyard. The Browns, probably still kind of like that, right? But definitely like that when we were growing up, watching all those quarterbacks go in the door and out the door until Baker Mayfield got there. I think it takes a really big culture guy who's also extremely talented to flip the switch on a franchise like that. And I just don't know if that's going to be Sam Darnold wherever he goes. I think he needs a little bit more cushion. And I think that they have the pieces. They certainly had a great draft last year to help with that. But I just think it just doesn't fit to me. And I just don't know if he would pass up like that comfort, even for more money, like coming from the Vikings to make that move and go to the Giants. I really just don't know if I see that, but I understand exactly where you're coming from. I also just think that he needs to beware of the bridge quarterback situation where you do feel like you are the guy for the Giants and you sign, and then a month later they go draft a guy at 3 because the top 2 teams didn't take a quarterback or something like that, right? Or there was one of the quarterbacks that you said, oh, well, if he's available at 3, we'll take him, right? And that's the guy that you guys like, and he ends up being there at 3, whoever that might be. I mean, it's obviously not a crazy quarterback draft, not top heavy, but I definitely think that that's something that I feel like I've seen over the last 10 years happen every other offseason, where there's a guy who gets that second chance, goes to a team, and then they end up drafting a quarterback, and it's like, well, we fell in love with him. So that's where I think the Giants might end up. But I did want to say, Diana Rossini, well-respected voice and reporter, she did report something today, and I should have said this at the very beginning of this part, but here we go. The Steelers are expected to make an offer to pending free agent Sam Darnold. That's a little bit surprising, right? Many around the league believe Darnold will wind up in Seattle, but Pittsburgh is doing its due diligence on any potential options ahead of the new league year. I don't think either of us are really buying Sam Darnold to Pittsburgh, but if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, he might be the first domino to fall. Then maybe he goes to Pittsburgh or Seattle.
You said that Seattle's a buyer on Sam Darnold?
Also, that's what they already also believe that that's a bridge quarterback. That is what it is for sure. But I think that would be too much money. But that's what Diana Rossini reported.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about bridge,
I don't know if I buy either of those destinations, but I could see it. I don't know who I buy. I think he probably just ends up going back to the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that too. the Seattle fit would be, if we're talking about fits that just don't work, like that would just be god awful. Like you don't have any of the things I was talking about in the Giants, that they have like a really good draft pick as well as like some pieces around him. You lose a lot of that with the Seahawks, and it, and would the Seahawks want to pay him what the quarterback market is right now? He's probably going to go for north of $40 million a year, like at least. So I cannot. I'd be shocked if he went to the Seahawks. So I think that's more of like, that could be like a smokescreen-esque type of thing.
Yeah, it definitely could be a smokescreen. I know it sounded a little backwards when I presented it, but just a report coming out there that a lot of people believed he could potentially end up in Seattle. I think with the Raiders move, it kind of threw a lot of things off. So there's kind of been a bit of a like reshuffling as far as the quarterback market and who wants to invest in the draft. I think if Seattle were to do that, I agree. It doesn't make any sense. That's too high of a bridge quarterback. But some of these
Yeah, too
franchises
high of a
might
bridge.
they might not even really see him as a starter long term. Maybe they want him to be there for 2 years and they want it to kind of overlap with an Arch Manning, right? In his rookie year, maybe they're okay with that. And they're thinking, well, why not? Gives us some leeway, some cushion. And they don't really know how many games they're going to win, or or they'll make it some sort of team friendly thing where they can cut him after next year. I don't know. And also, I just don't think that Pittsburgh really fits him. I think it's too much of a gamble. I think that they just want Rodgers. But like I said, if Rodgers goes somewhere else, then maybe they will have to make a push to go get Darnold, because it looks like they're going to let Fields walk.
Too high of a bridge quarterback from the Seattle side. I'm going to go
Yeah.
back to that for a second. Too high of a bridge quarterback and way too much money for them. Like I just don't know how that would make any sense for the Seattle Seahawks to go, especially with the moves that they're making. If they keep DK Metcalf, they pay him a big contract. If you don't release Tyler Lockett, even though Tyler Lockett he didn't have the biggest impact by the end of last season, so you can still release Tyler Lockett. But the moves that you listed and that they made, that would essentially mean that they're going to retool, or like depending on how long the contract is. Obviously, if it's 1 or 2 years, then maybe not. But like, that would essentially be retooling him against Sam Darnold, because if you have any belief in him, you think he can win a couple of games, then you're going to be out of the quarterback market for next season, like drafting wise. And then like it just doesn't make any sense to pay a guy like that so much money. So I just can't get on board with the Seattle like I guess smoke screen, I guess you could call it, or whatever is going on with the reports over there. I think the Steelers, or the Steelers, Giants, and Vikings probably make the most sense at this point with the Raiders going out and getting Gino.
Yeah, I definitely think the Vikings make the most sense. I mean, I've also seen in the odds, I believe this was before the Raiders trade, the Browns and the Titans were right up there as well at being potential destinations. But I think they're in the quarterback draft market. So,
Yeah.
they're not really expecting to go get a guy like Sam Darnold. I think your analysis on the Seahawks is completely right. But if there's anything going on in the league, I respect, reports like that, but everybody's lying at this point in time, right? And this also isn't to say that these people in the front office don't make incorrect moves too. Like, they're wrong all the time, just as much as they're right. So definitely they could end up being wrong about Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I like some of these things that are getting thrown out, just like always throwing me through a loop, because I understand some of it's smokescreen, some of it's like not real, but that just doesn't make any sense to me. I couldn't imagine what the Seahawks would be trying to do going down and getting Sam Darnold. The Steelers makes a lot more sense from like if he was going to leave anywhere else. I think Steelers, like I was saying, Steelers, Giants, Vikings, those have got to be the top 3 destinations for him.
I got one more, and then we'll get out of here and we'll make our final pick on where we think Sam Darnold is going to go.
Okay.
Colts. Just because their front office has said that they want to bring in a veteran quarterback who can challenge Anthony Richardson for the starting job. I think they essentially want to sit Anthony Richardson at the start of the season or something along those lines. They want to light a fire under him. Maybe that is the best fit for him. They do have a decent team around Anthony Richardson, and that whole last season just kind of fell apart after he kind of asked to go out of the game, and then Joe Flacco came in for a few weeks. I would say, and I can't believe we were forgetting about this at the very beginning when we were talking about it, that the Colts are my pick. It's either the Colts or the Vikings, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of already said my 2 cents. I think that Steelers Vikings makes the most sense to me. Colts are definitely on that list too. But
What about the
I mean,
Giants?
what? Oh yes,
Giants?
sorry.
At
Yeah,
okay,
Giants and Vikings. I got
Giants,
all
Vikings.
wrapped up in the Steelers talk. My fault. But yeah, Giants or Vikings would probably be my pick. The Steelers are also like again. I've named that list 3 separate times already. That those lists of 3 teams are my top 3. Just for comfort level, and it makes the most sense situationally at this point.